They told us to lay flat on our stomachs, and they tied us up with pink and blue cord, sorry, telephone cord. They tied our hands and our feet, and then they took my rings and my watch off. They didn't take Diane's. And then they got the money out of the cash drawer. They asked us where the boss was, and then they asked us where the rest of the money was, and there wasn't very much, and that's all we had.
What happened after they tied you up?
Well, they just took the money out of our drawers and insisted that we had more money, and we said we didn't. And then they just put the money in their pockets, and they went back to the back, took the money out of our billfolds, took our billfolds, and went out the back door.
You can always tell when the holiday season is coming on. The signs are clear. The drizzly weather, the turning leaves, and the bandits in Halloween masks out to beat the rush and stealing their Christmas shopping money. Fort Worth is getting a running start on the rob early season this year. Armed robberies are at an all-time peak, with the possibility we may hit 1,000 before the year's end. What with all these goings on, it's really not too surprising that persons in some professions are developing a case of holiday jitters. Take the case of Mrs. Peggy Johnson as an example. She's a teller at the drive-in window of the Seminary State Bank in South Fort Worth. Just after 9 this morning, a man drove up to her window wearing a Halloween mask. Whether he was indeed bent on robbery may never be known, because Mrs. Johnson, fearing the worst and feeling that discretion is the better part of valor, dropped to her knees, jammed on the alarm button, and started screaming for help. Mrs. LaDonna Yates, teller in the next window, heard the commotion and ran to help. By that time, the Halloween hijacker had fled. Bank President Bill Allen has some very definite thoughts about bank holdups and their causes.
Well, I think protection that most banks have now will be helpful, because we are having a rash of these drive-in robbery attempts. I think publicity is causing a lot of that, sorry to say.
Do you think that perhaps we need some stronger action in the courts when someone is caught from doing something of this nature?
Definitely.
Not wanting to be a party to something he's just condemned, President Allen encouraged Mrs. Johnson to answer no questions from newsmen. So she didn't. Thinking back over the morning's activities, police say that what they need most from robbery victims is more information. Description of the bandit, of his clothing and his car, and especially license numbers. Well, Mrs. Johnson's method of dropping out of sight at the first hint of trouble won't get the information the police need. But on the other hand, tellers like her don't lose much money either. Jerry Taff, Channel 8 News, Fort Worth.
No, there has been no word received. We were promised by the North Vietnamese that we would receive the letters from them as soon as it was feasible for them to contact Hanoi and in turn write to us. It has been 6 weeks and there's been no word.
Have you become a bit more anxious? Have you been scanning the mail a little more rapidly, rushing to the mailbox each day as the time grows longer?
Yes, I have experienced more anxiety in the past several days. I anticipated that the letter would be probably a few weeks in getting here, but by now, of course, I'm becoming quite anxious.
Mrs. Singleton, recently there was a moratorium demonstration in this country, and we've heard that there will be still another. Has there been any tie-in or work with the ladies such as yourself with the moratorium groups, and what is your opinion about those?
I personally do not think that the moratorium committee and the moratorium committee followers represent the mainstream of the American people. I think that this issue, the one of humanitarian treatment for the prisoners, is one that greatly affects the vast majority of the American people, and it's that vast majority that we're trying to solicit for concern and for help. I know that the moratorium committee was approached by a number of families whose loved ones are either missing or prisoners of war. They asked the people to consider the prisoners of war on their moratorium day. And I think that the moratorium silence on the prisoners of war has been conspicuously obvious. They have not made any replies, nor have they seemed, in any way that I can see, sincerely concerned for the prisoners.
Mrs. Singleton, President Nixon is going to talk on the Vietnam situation on the 3rd day of November. Do you expect him to address himself to the prisoner of war issue, and do you want him to address himself to the prisoner of war issue in that speech?
Well, of course, we're very much looking forward to the President's address. Very hopefully, he will address himself to the prisoner of war situation. We're very much in hopes that it's at that time that he will set forth proposals concerning the release of American prisoners. We are, of course, waiting for the letters, and we're continuing to try and inform the American people of what the situation is, the people around the world also, in hopes that perhaps further public opinion will further sway the North Vietnamese.
We believe the computer can eliminate much of the repetitive work that design and environmental experts have these days to allow them more time to make decisions based on man's environment. This is a major inroad that the application of computers will have on urban planning.
As a practical matter then, how is it going to change perhaps our neighborhoods, or how will the computer change the look of a downtown area?
Well, the computer will allow the designer to spend more time in the design approach or the design decision-making process. It'll take less of his time doing production work and data or fact gathering, which should allow him a larger piece of his budget to be applied to design and to solving problems, instead of the big majority of it is right now in doing production work to develop contract documents to actually build a construction.
So you think we're going to wind up with better designed and better built buildings because of this?
I don't think there's any question about that. If it saves us time, allows us to design the building more quickly, it's going to allow us to do it better.
The computer is visualized as very...
How dry I am. Note that pitiful expression. Nobody knows. You got bad breath.
My boss insists that he tries to match reporter and story. And then he sent me out to do a story about a singing pig. Of course, immediately I quit my job. But as one last gesture, I decided to go out after all to meet Oink. And I'm glad I did. After all, Oink, the singing pig, has talent.
I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I eat so my spinach, I fight to the finish. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
Oink's trainer is Uncle Heavy from Neff's, Ohio. How do you teach a pig to sing?
Well, this particular pig is very sensitive, and I just press on different places. He's like a king-sized accordion, and you get the notes. Now, how I've come by this, if you'll accept that, is bathing him. One day I was pushing like this, washing him, you know, and then all of a sudden... Very good. Now, a little higher. Excellent. Higher now. Higher! Higher! Now hit a high C! Sounds like he's got laryngitis. I guess he don't know what happens to singing pigs that won't sing anymore. I guess he's never heard about pork chops. There you go. That always loosens up his larynx.
I am.
No, huh? No, just. Okay, that's good. Thank you, thank you.
So I've decided not to resign my job after all. A 300-pound hog story is no small assignment. This is Teal Salon at the Shrine Circus in Dallas.
We'd have had an armed robbery of a bank in Fort Worth today, too, Cochise, if Mrs. Peggy Johnson weren't so afraid of ghosts and goblins. A bandit, or at least police suppose he was a bandit, pulled into Mrs. Johnson's drive-in window here at the Seminary State Bank on Fort Worth's south side this morning, wearing a Halloween mask. The lady didn't wait to hear what the man had to say. She just dropped to her knees and started screaming. And it worked. The bandit drove off with nothing for his effort. The teller in the next cage, Mrs. LaDonna Yates, said Mrs. Johnson screamed so loud that her screams probably scared the bandit as much as his mask scared her. Jerry Taff, Channel 8 News at Seminary State Bank.